Do I?
Is Mr. Arndt? Good evening. Welcome to tonight's Geneva City School Board of Education January 18th meeting. We have a roll call, please.
Mr. Arndt?
Present.
Ms. Fisher?
Here.
Mrs. Metzler?
Here.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Here.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Here. A motion to adopt the agenda.
Move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes. Are we in compliance?
Yes, we are.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any correspondence?
Yes, I received communications regarding either bus building and/or student issues, and they were all addressed and/or directed to the appropriate personnel to address.
Mr. Lillie? No. Okay. Agenda modifications?
There is a new number 7. There is a correction to P8B. There is a new P8C. The old P8C is now D. There is an addition to P8D3. There is a new number 9, and then the old 9 and 10 are now 10 and 11.
That brings us to our Spire discussion.
So, back at the end of November, on November 22nd, Mr. Lillie and I met with Jeff Orloff and Jonathan Ehrenfeld, I believe is how
That's
you
correct.
pronounce his name, of Spire for one of our meetings that we have to keep the lines of communication open and check in with one another. So one of the items that came up was our pilot agreement that expires on June 30th, 2027. And basically, they wanted to know if there was an option to open up negotiations. They felt that it could be mutually beneficial because it would lower their taxes and extend our ability to use their facility until 2050, as that is what they are proposing to us. I know that Mr. Lillie has run some of the numbers, so I will turn it over to him and let him share that information as well.
Okay. So based on what Spire was asking was if the different taxing entities would be willing to allow them to pay their taxes rather than continuing to pay the last 4 years of the pilot payments. So I've distributed a little analysis to you that has 5 columns. The first column is the fiscal years in question, which since they made their payment for 22-23, the first fiscal year would be 23-24, all right? It shows in the second column what Spire pays now. So right now, based on the pilot agreement, which was for 10 years, covering 17 years of taxes, they pay to Geneva schools, this is our roughly 50%, $197,208. That's in the form of a pilot payment direct to the school district, and that's the amount that we receive. If you move to the second column, what they would like to pay based on information that they received from the county auditor, who said their total tax bill would be approximately $140,000, $70,000 is what would come to us. Now, in this case, we don't, when it comes through tax collections, we don't receive the full $70,000. We get charged about 3% in fees from the county auditor, from the county treasurer, and so on, county prosecutor, and so $70,000 is the gross tax revenue. In the fourth column, you see what Geneva currently pays. So for the next 4 years, we pay 0 for the use. If you look back at that second column, Spire pays now. Once this pilot agreement is exhausted, fiscal year 27, Spire would begin paying based on whatever their valuation is at the time they would pay taxes. So that estimate, again, provided by the county auditor, would be $70,000. So the assumption is here, I'm showing $70,000 throughout. Now, $70,000 was on the property that was approved for abatement. They will be paying more than this, but for the purposes of this comparison, we're just assuming the $70,000 out of the $140,000 tax liability that they would have each year. But on improvements that were made, for instance, they added dorms, they finished the aquatic center building with classrooms and so on. There will have to be some sort of valuation increase that goes along with that. So when they begin paying taxes on the bill, there will be some increase that we get over the $70,000, okay? But that $70,000, I'm just showing through the entire analysis here. And again, in the third column, what they would like to pay, we're showing $70,000 throughout. Now, it could increase if once they're paying their taxes, just like everybody else, they may see a valuation increase. So that would also could possibly increase their taxes. And obviously, with the different taxing entities, if there's any additional tax levies passed within this taxing district, that could increase the taxes that they pay. In the fourth column, after the 4 years that we don't pay anything, if we do nothing, we begin paying, or we have the option, if you recall, as discussed previously, in our agreements, we have the option to extend the agreement for 15 years. And in that 15-year period, we would pay no more than 0.1% of line 2.08 on our 5-year forecast, which is the total general operating revenue line. And if you see the note down at the bottom, we would pay no more than that, but not less than $20,000. That kind of goes along with our original agreement with Spire, when we were paying $20,000 a year for the usage. According to our current 5-year forecast, I've listed fiscal year 23 through 27, what 0.1% of that total general operating revenue line would be. So you can see it ranges from $26,514.79 in fiscal year 23 to $27,346.54 in fiscal year 27. Off to the right, I put the increase over the previous year for 24, 25, 26, 27. Based on that, those increases, taking the average for the 4 years and rounding up slightly, I'm assuming a 0.8% increase each year. So when you look at column 4, beginning in fiscal year 28, you see the amount that we might possibly pay if we extended the agreement for 15 years and paid 0.1% of line 2.080. That range would be from $27,565.31 in fiscal year 28. That amount is a 0.8% increase over what's currently on our 5-year forecast for fiscal year 27. And then that would range down at the bottom there, you see $32,846.91. Now, if the board was willing to consider what Spire has asked, and what they have told us is they'd be willing to, if they began paying their taxes as soon as possible, and up for this assumption, it's fiscal year 24, if they began paying their taxes, they would be willing to extend to Geneva $0 for that usage through 2050, a total of 27 years from fiscal year 24 to fiscal year 50. So in that last column, you see all zeros, what we would pay if we work something out. So if we went those 50 years, now you go back to column 2, you see the total that we would receive from Spire if we did nothing. So, if we do continue the 4 years of pilot payment, and even if we extend it 15 years, if we don't do anything beyond that, and they pay their $70,000 a year, the total over 50 years that Geneva would receive in taxes or pilot payments would be just under $2.4 million. Okay? Spire would like to pay, what they're showing there is that they would like to pay $1,897,000, which would be $70,000 for all of those 27 years. Geneva would pay $693,047.46. You know, again, these are estimates based on those assumptions over those 27 years. Zero the first 4, and once that pilot is exhausted, then an increasing amount based on the 5-year forecast each year. Now, if the board was willing to work out a deal for the 50 years where we would pay nothing, the Geneva would save the total of that column for $693,047.46. We would not be paying that. The difference between what we would receive from Spire, the $2,398,000 and the $1.89 million, is $508,832. So we would receive $508,832 less if an agreement was worked out through 2050. But we would save $693,000, so the difference is $184,215.46. So there are more savings than what we would lose in lost revenue from something like this, if it was done.
Kevin, so that's the bottom line, right? It would save us $184,000. Right?
Yes,
When you-
in total.
When you add in that and then subtract that, totally we have a savings of,
Right,
When you-
based on what we would not get in income if this was done, but what we would save by not having to pay anything for our usage at Spire through 2050.
thank you.
You mentioned that the amount that they want to pay in the third column at $70,000 is something less than that when it comes to us through the taxing authority. Do you have any idea how much less than that?
3%, said
Oh.
the fees are roughly 3%
Okay,
of the gross collections.
okay.
So, you know, what, on the 5-year forecast, this is what would go on the revenue side, the gross tax collections, and the fees are charged off as expenditures.
Okay,
But so basically the net, what we receive in cash from those collections would be 3% less.
Were you gonna mention the other entities involved, that it's not just us?
Sure. Well, obviously, there are other taxing entities involved. Now, during the course of all the board meetings that took place, all the discussions that took place that granted them the retroactive tax abatement, and then worked out this pilot agreement, and then carried these over from Mr. Clutter to the new owners, there are other taxing entities that were represented. Those taxing entities are also receiving in total approximately $197,208. So, you know, the total pilot payment is like roughly $396,000. So they're receiving the other half. I think Spire is thinking that some of those entities, and I don't know if all of them, but we haven't approached them yet because we want to know whether the board is interested in pursuing this at all. But we would have to approach them to see, Spire would be wanting to see if they are willing to waive their pilot payments and begin receiving the taxes, which would mean they would be splitting the other $70,000 of that $140,000 tax collection each year.
in the contract that we currently have with them after the pilot, we have the ability, you wrote down the 15-year extension. That's all that contract calls for, is 15
Right,
years.
right.
That would take us to fiscal year 42.
That's correct.
And so the way that this looks to me is you can't argue the bottom line numbers. It's a savings to the district. But it's only a savings to the district if we plan to be with them through 2050.
Right. If we stop at 42, if we extend it 15 years and then we would be on our own to negotiate with them, and we potentially would pay more, because this is much less. I can tell you with 100% certainty that what we've locked in here, and when we were paying 20,000, is much less than what the actual usage would cost if we were billed like other groups that might use them. So if we go to 42, we don't say save or make out, because at the end of 42, we would pay $437,456.77.
Tell me that number again, please.
$437,456.77 is what we would have paid with those numbers showing there for those 15 years.
Okay.
And, we would have received our pilot payments,
Right.
which I didn't total this, but I think if you take those pilot payments and subtract the difference between the 197,208 and 70,000, there's not going to be as much a difference as that 184,000 in those 15 years. But over those 15 years, we're paying 70,000 a year. Up to that point on this scenario, we would have Spire would have paid us $1,838,832.
1,838,32.
$1,838,832.
832. Okay. So what are the next steps here?
Well, I think if the board was interested, there would be a couple things we want to do. First, we want to make sure that this is something that's doable. I mean, we have a current pilot agreement. I think if we checked with the attorneys that were used to work that out, that if it was replaced with some other agreement, that it could be done. If you recall, if Spire or Mr. Clutter at the time, now the new owners, if they just stopped paying that pilot payment, there were penalties. They would have to pay us back all the back taxes and stuff that were owed, less whatever they paid us to date. And so they would have had to pay a lot more. But if we were to work out some other deal, then I don't think that would still be the case. We would replace the current pilot with another deal that it would extend this to 2050 at no cost to the district for the use of Spire. We would also have to reach out to the other taxing entities to see what they are willing to do. And then if they aren't willing to forego their 4 years of Spire payments, then that would be back in Spire's lap to determine whether they want to go with the savings that they would get from Geneva Schools, which would just be the $508,832. Obviously, if everybody forewent it, then they're saving $1,016,000.
And what's the timeline, Kevin? How long do we have to?
Well, they would want to get it done before they began. Actually, I mean, I think their initial hope was to get it done before they began paying their 23 taxes. That's this year.
When this
Their
year?
2020,
April.
if you read the
No.
paper, it was just
April
extended till
24.
March 1st.
Oh, March 1st,
Normally, it's
right.
like February 15th, February 16th.
Right.
And it was extended to March 1st.
And I know also when we were in discussion, or in that meeting, I should say, if we were willing to open it up to negotiation, that they would hope that the negotiations would be wrapped up by the end of June.
This June.
Yes.
End of the school year, end of the fiscal year.
Right.
Okay.
And we have no inkling right now of what the other taxing district or entities would be willing to do right now.
No, we have not spoken to them. We didn't think it necessary unless the board was willing to consider Spire's offer. But I think you can see that, yeah, there would be some benefit to us. Obviously, there's a benefit to Spire. Their group, their ownership group would save some money on between the pilot payment and the tax payments.
I guess I'm having a hard time because nobody has a crystal ball, and I think 15 years in the future sounds like a really long time. And taking this down to 2050 sounds even longer. And it's hard to know where we'll be as a district and what our decision-making, the leaders, what decisions our leaders will be making in 10 years about using Spire anymore, being able to build a stadium. I mean, there's been recent talk about this. I mean, this is on people's mind. And if we don't want to use them through this entire time, then we will be losing money.
Yes, if you didn't go the full 50 years and get the savings by not paying anything during that time, yes, we'd potentially lose money. But, if we didn't do something, we also would be potentially paying more if we don't go with the 15 years at this, and if we then have to negotiate for any time beyond that 15 years if the board chooses to extend the agreement.
Do we have any kind of ballpark on the cost of a new stadium? Millions, right? But is it
Yes.
1 million, 10 million? What's the ballpark? No
5
pun
to
intended.
7, roughly.
I know that there was a group that started to look into this, and I believe the number that they had said was 7 to 8, if memory
Okay.
serves me correct.
I have a hard time going to 2050 because that's like, I don't know, 6 school boards away? Or 7?
Well, obviously, as with any agreement, and even the current agreement that we have, the agreement can be terminated by, agreement with both parties. Now, it's written into our current agreement, that could be written in here, but as Mrs. Metzler pointed out, if you enter into this, if you only go the 15 years, you don't see the savings that the district would see if we go 50 years of no usage. So, I guess it does depend on how the board's seeing the school district using Spire. If you don't think it's going to be using it through 2050, or going to want to use it through 2050, then maybe we don't pursue it. But if you think we would continue that use for as long as we can, there would be savings if the agreement goes through 2050 at no cost.
But the savings up front is obviously it would be for Spire.
Up front, yes, definitely.
So
They
we're not gonna see the benefit of that savings until you get to years 45 through 50.
Right.
Other than in fiscal year 28, as opposed to paying $27,000, we pay nothing. So starting then, we're gonna be saving ourselves each year $27,000, $28,000.
Right, but the net's not gonna be
Right.
until after that pilot.
Yes.
So really,
Yes.
it's further down than that.
Yes,
Until our savings equals or exceeds the
What we gave up.
$508,832.
yep.
I
But-
just personally feel that back when that pilot was created and agreed to, there was a lot of hours, a lot of time put into that, and to just change it now, I just have a hard time with that. And personally, I don't feel as though we're gonna get the other taxing districts on board with that for the simple fact that they're not gaining anything. That's my opinion. Because the school is the only entity in that group that actually receives a reward for giving them a discount on taxes.
And who are these entities that we're talking about?
The county, NAD, the library,
Harpersfield Township,
MRDD,
Metro Parks,
actually,
ATEC.
the MRDD is not part of that agreement. ATEC and County Metro Parks. There's 6 additional entities.
I got 4.
Harpersfield
ATEC,
Township.
NAD, the county, Metro Parks, Harpersfield. What am I missing?
did you get the
Library.
library?
Library, thank you. just the Geneva Library, right? Even though they're part of
Well,
ACDL?
it's the
It's
Ashtabula
ACDL.
County District Library.
Yeah, okay. Can we get a feel for their thoughts on this before we go further? Or is that too many steps ahead?
Well, I think the first thing is whether the board's interested in pursuing it. If the board's not, then there's no need to involve the other taxing entities.
So this was a discussion tonight. Do we feel as though we have enough information to proceed with the motion, or do we feel as though we need more information, or do we want to set it aside for a meeting? Does anybody want to make a motion, yes or no?
I feel I need more information along with, I need to talk, I just feel I need to talk to some of the residents. I need to talk to some of the users, some of the parents. It's a big decision, and like you said, there was so much, we spent years on getting to the point where we're at right now. And just to come in here and talk for a few minutes and move forward, I'm not comfortable doing that.
And I would agree with.
I'm not sure that's what we're saying. Aren't we saying tonight just deciding whether or not to even consider doing this? Not that we're going to vote to do it, but to at least consider it. That's my understanding. Does that sound right? I don't see any harm in considering it. I mean, that's what we're doing right this moment, is considering it.
Do you have a
looking at it.
motion?
Nope.
Ms. Fisher?
Is there room for a counter proposal? Is there something that we could put together that would be more agreeable, maybe less time, not going all the way out to 50, that would be a counter to this one, that they might be agreeable to?
I don't really see what we could counter with. I mean, what we would get out to 50 is no cost. Can't, I mean, unless we want them to pay us to use it, there's nothing else really to counter with there. The only thing that's on the table different from what would occur normally without anything else, the tax collections, is those 4 years of pilot payments. So, I mean, those are on the books. A new agreement would supersede that. So I don't know, what we could counter with.
What about countering with a shorter time frame?
But as pointed out, if you go to a shorter time frame, then
we
you
don't
don't
get
get,
anything.
you don't get the
We
savings.
have to go
You don't-
long-term or we
Then
don't.
it's not as
Yeah, okay.
appealing.
To us, right.
Right. It takes to go to that 27 years to 2050 to see the difference of 184,215 between what we would save and what we would lose in income from Spire.
So, we need a motion to table or set aside
need a
for a
motion
later
to
date
table, or
for
can we
more
just
discussion?
table
No,
This was
if,
just a discussion, there is no motion.
So with no motion, we don't need to do anything,
Yes.
so we can move forward then.
Is that all the discussion for tonight? Okay.
yeah, so, if you just drop this item or we end the discussion, then we're not going to go any further with this. We're not going to talk to the taxing entities unless you gave us a direction that you wanted us to do that.
Well, I think that most of us have expressed at least some opinion on it, but to me, I think we need to revisit this maybe at a later meeting so that we can decide one way or the other. Because I don't think I'm hearing one way or the other that, yes, we want to go forward, or no, we don't. I'm not hearing no, we don't. I'm hearing we need a little bit more time and some more information. So I think that with that, we might want to revisit this next month with another discussion to see if we would motion that we would or would not go forward with entertaining a new deal.
Okay, I understand that, but I don't know that we would have, at this point, we would not have any other information to present you.
Well, just to the point that Mr. Arndt was talking about the things that he wanted to do. And I.
Do his due diligence.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So we want this back on the agenda for discussion in February, is that correct?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so
Okay.
too.
Yes,
Sally? Yeah.
yes.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is public participation. As we have discussed at previous board meetings, while the board has no legal obligation to provide a period of public participation, the board has adopted Board Bylaw 0169.1 to provide for public participation during regular meetings of the board because the board values the community and the opportunity to hear its concerns and feedback. As provided by the Board Bylaw 0169.1, the portion of the meeting during which the participation of the public is invited shall be limited to 30 minutes unless extended by a vote of the board. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 5 minutes in duration unless extended by the presiding officer, and no participant may speak more than once on the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. All participants are expected to comply with the standards set forth in the board policy manual with regard to public participation. As noted on the board's agenda during today's meeting, one period of public participation will be held, and as a result, we will now begin the 30-minute period of public participation for today's meeting. Amber, can you time, please?
Yes.
When you do step up to the microphone, please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Jack Dubsky, 142 Lockwood Street, Geneva, Ohio. Tonight, since I only have 5 minutes, I have a lot of things I'd love to talk about, but since I only have 5 minutes, tonight I want to refer to the Star Beacon article I read on 1/6/23. It was an article that covered your organizational meeting, and I want to start by thanking Mrs. Metzler and Mrs. Dixon for finally showing the public that this current board doesn't always have to vote unanimous. Doesn't always have to be a 5-0 vote. Bravo. You two did good. I'd like to see more of that in the future. Thank you, Mrs. Ortiz, for recognizing the Geneva School Board meeting as one of the most popular meetings around. You're 100% correct on that. This meeting has become more popular because of people are paying attention, and we don't like what we see from our superintendent and the administration sitting up there. We don't like the direction the school board's taking. And Mrs. Ortiz, most importantly, thank you for letting us know the public concerns to you are derogatory and unnecessary. I don't feel that any parent that takes time out of their busy schedule that comes here to talk should be viewed in that fashion. Listen to the parents' concerns. Listen to the taxpayers' concerns. You work for us. Thank you, Mrs. Fisher, for letting us know that you think the public's agenda is not the board's agenda. The two go hand in hand. You represent the public. What we as parents and taxpayers want from our district is very important to me. And Mr. Arndt, thank you for letting us know that we can address you as individuals and not have to address a board of 5 when we have concerns as taxpayers. You were quoted as saying this in the Star Beacon. Also, thank you for letting us know that you feel the public doesn't address you in a respectful manner, in a productive manner. I respectfully disagree with you. Leading to something else, I want to know, the Dubskys have a big root in this community for many years. We know a lot of people. And I talk to a lot of people. I'm a talker. I can't shut up sometimes. And I'm hearing from people that there's a lot of bullying going on in this school system. Another student assaulted at GPS. A fight Friday at the middle school. Staff are being hurt now. And Dr. Hrina-Treharn, you're in negotiations with a resource officer? Are you kidding me? We need more than one resource officer. Are you kidding me? Come on, do better. As a parent and as a taxpayer, I plead for all 7 of you to do better. Some of you are heading in that direction. Dr. Hrina-Treharn, last but certainly not least, please, I beg of you to consider tendering your resignation in the near future. Thank you.
My
My name is Alice Calusi. I live at 4567 Wood Road, Madison, Ohio. While I am a teacher at the middle school in this beautiful district, tonight I address you as a parent of a choir student who is expecting to go to New York City this April. However, today, the choir department was informed that unless their choir director changes the date of their trip until the day after she returns from FMLA, they are not allowed to go on their trip. This means that the choir director would have one day of ears on with her students before they leave for this trip, in which they would be performing and competing against their peers from across the country. That's not adequate. The reason that they're not allowed to go when Mrs. Mather has chosen to take them is because 4 or 5 students would be missing their government test for the state. And while we all understand how important the data is for our district, I assure you that those 5 students, when they return, can still take their test because it has a 2-week window in which they are able to take that. Going on this trip will not affect their performance, whether they take the test on the day it is assigned or they take it when they return. However, you have a group of children who have, for the last 3 years, had many things taken away from them, not to anyone's fault, but because of COVID. And now when we are able to return to some form of normalcy, we're told, sorry, you're having surgery, take them the day after you return. Or take them during spring break when their families have already planned and paid for vacations. That's not right. There is an option. It is workable. I know as a parent, I sent a letter to the choir director saying that I have given my daughter permission to take her test on a makeup date because this trip is more important than one test, and that her score isn't going to change regardless of the day she takes that test. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Denise Terri. I live at 1891 Lakeside Drive, Madison, Ohio. I'm a veteran teacher here in Geneva, 31 years. I lived in Geneva for 25 years while raising my own 2 children who also graduated from Geneva High School. Geneva used to be the school to teach at, the school in Ashtabula County. Everybody wanted to be here. Everybody wanted to teach. That has changed. From 2000 to 2020, our district placed 1 employee on administrative leave. In 20 years, just 1 certified teacher, 0 classified, and 0 administrators. From 2021 to the present, that's only a year and a half, you have placed 4 certified members on paid administration leave. You've placed 1 administrator and several classified members on paid administrative leave, all of which have been unfounded. This has had a devastating impact on your teachers, but more importantly, your students. About 120 seniors. We've had a teacher out since December 12th. Are you aware that the class he teaches is in a tested area? And from listening to Mrs. Calusi, you are aware of that. And you're willing to have a substitute teacher in there, having them read from a book, but you're not willing to allow them to go on a trip? The teacher of that class is a master teacher. He knows what's on the test. He knows how to prepare those students, and you're depriving our students of a master teacher. The cost here in Geneva is great. How have these unfounded paid administrative leaves, how much has it cost our money-savvy district between the salaries, the substitutes, and the educational time that we have lost? You're also costing our district its reputation. We are now the district to avoid. We have several openings that can't be filled. Since 2021, we have had the head of maintenance resign, a nurse, a principal, an assistant superintendent, an ESL teacher, 4 early retirements, a special ed coordinator, and a young math teacher who in the beginning wanted to continue his father's legacy, but decided the cost was too great here at Geneva. Then there's hospitalizations and time off that administrators and staff have had to take due to the stress. Our enrollment is down, and many students are leaving our district. Each of these can be explained individually, which I'm sure you will try, but collectively, they all have one common factor. This is just the beginning. Please stop this. There are more teachers in Geneva that are planning to leave our district, great teachers, that don't want to do this anymore. And even more teachers not planning to come to Geneva. They have heard how stressful it is and how difficult it is to work. Put the students first and finish the investigation. Please put him back into the classroom and learn to determine false accusations from ones that might hold merit. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christy Burns. I am at 4262 North County Line Road, Geneva. Living on County Line Road, I kind of get to choose which school my kids go to. One of my daughters started off at Madison. Everyone told me how great Geneva was, so we ended up coming to Geneva when she was in first grade. I have never thought more about switching that than I have in the past year. I have 3 children in the district. I am an employee here. I am a nurse, but I come to you as a parent tonight. I am very concerned with the way our community is concerned. I don't know that you're seeing that. The way we're spending our money, I don't think that it is in the best interest of our students. I'll give you a few examples. We have 2 full-time nurses right now in our district. Okay, we have one that I just saw that was an addendum that she's going to be out, I believe, until May 8th. If you look at your stuff. The thing with that is that we are running 5 buildings on 2 nurses. We have 1 substitute nurse that has not been offered a position because a position is not opened. Okay. So that means that we have a nurse who could make so much money someplace, but she's devoting her time here for substitute pay. What is that, $110? Slightly over $100? A nurse could make so much more than that, okay? We need to go out and get people. We have nurses that want to come here and serve our students. We have asthmatics, we have diabetics, we have students on seizure action plans, we have safety plans for our students. We have students that are in crisis mode after being so secluded for several years, okay? And I'm telling you, this is not someplace that you cut corners. If you came in and saw a typical day in a nurse's clinic, you wouldn't believe it, okay? And the thing is that we're pulled between multiple buildings. So when I'm needed someplace, I'm not there. When a fight broke out, my scheduled time was to be at the high school. It occurred at the middle school. When things are needed, I'm not where I need to be. So basically, I'm coming to you from a parent standpoint that our children are not being served in that manner. I believe the contract says that it needs to have 2.5 full-time nurses. I know that there's not an open position, but certainly we can do something a little differently. There's got to be other ways that we can do this. Madison right now, with their current busing situation at the library, they have cards everywhere. Their advertising is fabulous. They're paying their bus drivers while they go get their certifications that the school is paying for. Their advertising is great. If you go check out the Madison Public Library, as soon as you're at the checkout desk, their advertising is on point. It's in all of their community places. We are lacking that. When I went to look for the job, I found it through Facebook because the only places jobs are posted are through the ESC, which as a nurse, I've never even heard of the ESC. The second place they're posted is on our website. If you're going to look for a job, we need to be out there on different platforms. We need to be putting stuff at our libraries, our community places. There are so many opportunities to get staff members, different positions filled, and I just feel like our students are really being underserved when we are not correctly staffed. I speak from a nursing position, but our teachers, our administration, so many things are understaffed because there's no gumption to go out and get it from the top. There's no HR.
Good evening. My name is Chloe Davidson, 1737 Roxbury Drive. I'm a student here at GHS, specifically a choir student. I have put so many hours into my craft, from Advanced Women's to Geneva's Image. As you know, Geneva is continuing to rebuild our program after the effects of COVID. I want to ask this board, why are we not allowed to go to New York City for our trip? Why are you refusing to approve it? There are 4 students whose testing is affected, but plans were made so that we could test upon return. Do you understand the target that we get put on our back from other students? Competition is an important part of music education. We are being denied that chance once again, not by COVID, but by adults and mentors who are making these decisions. I am asking you to please reconsider.
Good evening. My name is Maddie LeMay, 2891 Brown Road. I am a member of Geneva's Image and Women's Chorale. Going to New York City for a choir competition is a chance that not a lot of people get. It is the class of 23's last year at Geneva High, and if they are in choir, I'm sure they would want to finish off their final high school year with going to New York. The freshmen that are in choir would be more than happy to go and would more than likely join choir next year to make more fun memories like that and the memories leading up to it. The 4 choir students that would have to miss state testing would be more than willing to take the test when they get back, which would be on a Monday. Something they love, cherish, and value more than anything is being taken away. Choir is more than just a class you take. It's a family. We all have grown and are still growing into amazing people. Thank you for listening, and please take what we had to say into consideration.
My name is Nicole Pershing, and I live at 1080 Mechanicsville Road.
I'm sorry, what was your last name?
Pershing.
Pershing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I'm here to address a situation that seems to be ongoing and have it documented. I have 4 children in the Geneva City School District. 3 are biracial and 1 that is white. Over the last 6 months, my mixed children have experienced hatred, bullying, and discrimination, both physically and mentally, in and out of school. I have done my best to inform teachers, counselors, coaches, parents, and the administration to no avail. I know that I am not alone in this situation that seems to be a growing trend. I no longer feel that my children are safe in this environment, and I have requested involvement from outside resources.
I'm Stephanie Williams, 188 Ruth Street, Geneva, Ohio. Okay. I would like to know when Geneva schools decide they would like to do something about the race problem that we have. Because our children that are biracial get tortured on a daily. My daughter gets called the N-word every single day. My daughter her daughter wants to sit here and have braids in her hair every day because the white kids want to pull their hair or because they got nappy hair. And I've already had a conversation with you on the phone. And you want to sit there and say we don't deal with racism? That's a lie. Because I've been dealing with it since my son, who is a senior here, was in elementary school. My daughter, who was in elementary school last year, had to sit there and call her principal several times. Now my daughter is now a Lakeside student as of 48 hours ago because she no longer feels safe or wants to deal with the racism because of the color of her skin. And what I get told? Well, tell somebody. We tell somebody, they do nothing. Or these kids get told, why don't they walk away? You gonna walk away if every single day of your life you're being tortured because of the color of your skin? No. My daughter and my son and every other biracial child in this school district should not have to go to school and be reminded every day that they're not all white. Or be reminded that, or they sit there and they tell them, you're not white at all, you're black. There's no way your mom's white. Why are we bringing up race every single day? Explain to me why these children can't go to school and get an education. And then when the school says, well, Stephanie, what should we do? What is your idea? Why do I gotta come up with it? Because I'm one of the three that already raised this $63,000 to put the door barricades in the school because of safety reasons. So now I gotta take it upon myself to continue to keep trying to figure out why everybody wants to bully everybody in this school because of race? And just so you know, the NAACP has been contacted and they'll see you this week.
Mary Allison, 5076 Lake Road East, Geneva. I am here to promote our school resource officer. I can't even tell you how important he is to our school district. It's all the behind scenes. He knows our kids. He knows what they're going through. He can sometimes nip things in the bud. In fact, most times he does, because he finds out about things and he goes and fixes it before things happen. And so our resource officer, to me, for our safety of our students and our staff is the most important. I mean, if we can spend $30,000 on marketing, surely we can spend money for the safety of our children.
Huh? 10 minutes left.
Jennifer Thompson, 3215 South Myers, Geneva. I just have a question about the choir. In the bylaws, it says that the board approves or denies it, but the choir was told today that their date is denied per the superintendent. So why is it denied before it comes to you as a board to discuss whether they can go, whether they can miss their test, etc.? That's just a question. And then
we haven't reached that agenda item.
And then also, just to correct you, Mr. Arndt, MRDD is very derogatory. It is now DD.
What is it called now?
DD.
DD?
MRDD is very derogatory and should never be used. I know some of our board members use the R word, but a lot of parents don't because it's derogatory towards their children.
Thank you.
My name is Brandy Breen. I live at 5445 Old Orchard Drive.
Sorry, can you say your last name again?
Breen, B-R-E-E-N. I'm new to the school district. My family and I just bought a house here 4 months ago. My children, I have 2 children that have been attending for over 2 years now. But recently I just wanted to step up because this is my daughter's first year in the high school. The problems we've experienced with the band and the band teacher, I think have gone beyond, I don't think people are really paying attention to what's going on. I have a lot of issues with the band teacher. She's not there a lot. She's not there to conduct and handle the students. She has a lot of students in charge of other students, which I totally understand. We have section leaders of different bands. My daughter has been in detention, has never gotten in trouble in her life, has been in detention because of following the direction of some of these students she has in charge. When I called the school, spoke to the principal to find out, why is my daughter in trouble? Well, because the teacher said, or the band teacher said this, and the student said this. Either way, they sided with the band teacher because she made the ultimate decision. But not only that, but we just recently had one of those orders where you place and you go collect money. The whole point of those is a fundraising thing, right? To bring money to the band. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but the band desperately needs money. My daughter started high school playing one instrument, was told that she couldn't continue to play that because they were broke. I'm sorry, honey, I know you want to play, but we don't have enough of those. We have them, but they're broke and they can't be fixed. So on top of that, I've had to pay uniform charges. My daughter's wearing used shoes from somebody else in marching band. I don't know how old they are, but I think that's kind of ridiculous. So point being, so we do this fundraiser. I go out and I help my daughter sell about $700-800 worth of candy or cheesecakes. Comes in, I have no paper. I have nowhere for this food to go. It sits in my garage for over a month. I'm calling the school. I'm emailing the teacher. I'm emailing the assistant band teacher. Sorry, I don't know where the list is. Well, I don't know where this stuff goes. I said, do you understand this stuff is molding in my garage? Well, I don't know. I'll look into it. So finally, after 3.5 weeks, I call the principal. I don't get to speak to him. I speak to the assistant. I say, listen, man, I got all this food molding in my garage. What am I supposed to do? This money is supposed to be for the band. I'm not paying for it. I'll look into it. Come to find out, here we are 3 weeks later, nobody has called me back. My husband and I just took $700 worth of stuff and chucked it in the garbage because the cheesecakes were moldy. We tried to open it all up and see if anything could be saved, and we really couldn't save much. So that tells me there is some kind of major lack when it comes to the band with communication, the principal, the teacher, the fact that we have all these broken instruments, the fact that we have students in charge that are getting other students in trouble. There's a lot of chaos there. To top this all off, now my daughter comes home and tells me she can't go on this choir concert. This is like this choir trip. This is the biggest thing she's been looking forward to since they've talked about it. You guys were young once, and I think you understand it's important, not necessarily, I'm going to say something a little different, for the singing aspect. It's important for these students to bond. It's really important for them to bond while they're in 9th grade, because they're going to come up in the ages together. They need this trip. For students, the parents are okay with waiting till Monday to take the test. I just wanted to voice out that with all the problems with the band, I know a lot of these students are also in band, in theater, because our students are, a little different. They like to gather together. But these students really need to go on this trip. And I think it would break down a lot of the stress that's been happening, because I also agree with the other parent. There has been a lot of bullying going on. My daughter has been involved in some of it, not on the bullying end, but on the other side. And I've heard a lot from her of stuff going on. Luckily, I'm not involved in that, and really neither is she, but I really feel the students do need this trip. So I just ask that you guys reconsider. So thank you.
There's 3 minutes remaining in the hearing of the public.
Real quick. My name's Aaron Green, the husband of the lady at 5445 Old Orchard Drive. I've been to New York, and I went when I was 21, right? I'm never going back to New York again, all right? These kids are going to be supervised. They're going to be, of age to enjoy New York as a young person, smell it, get it out of their system before they run away when they're 18 to go to Broadway. Give it to them now, what's controlled, with parents of care, and the opportunity that they've earned through their service through choir, band, everything, Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll be quick, I promise. Mackenzie Herrick, 4567 Wood Road, Madison, Ohio. I'm a senior this year. My mom was the first one that spoke. Different aspect of that, the experiences. I got to go to Disney my freshman year. The bonds that we build, the opportunities that Mrs. Mather gives us are amazing. She puts her whole heart into what she does, her whole heart. Everything she can, she does for us. The experiences she allows us to build and the fun that we have are experiences we might never get again. So when you discuss this later, please consider it. Thank you.
Is that time?
You got 2 minutes, so.
Okay. A motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
I'll second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
A motion to accept the treasurer's financial report.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
And Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
That brings us to informational items.
Approval of invoices.
Oh, excuse me. Approval of invoices. A motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
And Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Okay, that brings us to informational items.
Well, you have the investment report and a donation to be reported from an anonymous donor to assist students with negative cafeteria balances at GPS.
Thank you for that. The legislative report?
Yes, I was pulling it up. Excuse me. Good evening, everyone. So the governor's been busy signing bills into law. So I have a summary of some of those that pertain to education. He signed, Governor DeWine, for those of you that don't, he signed another ESSER fund bill, Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, ESSER funds. We get $1.7 billion, the state, the state, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, at other times. There's lots of other numbers. Goes up from 14 to 33%. It'll restore. Also included in that bill is, we talked about 2 or 3 months ago, I think, that there was a raffle situation where whether or not school districts can hold raffles. That's gone. He signed that into law that school districts can absolutely do raffle fundraising. Okay, that's that one. Sorry. So then there was another one that he signed with the State Board of Education issuing 2-year temporary educator licenses to applicants with expired professional teacher certificates. They did this before. This is just a renewal of that same thing. Again, a renewal of the age from 6 to 9 regarding the education of children experiencing developmental delays in order to identify them in a timely manner. That one we've talked about already. I just wanted to quick update you that that has now been signed into law. Another bill, Senate Bill 33, he signed. This expands the income tax deduction allowed for contributions to Ohio's 529 College Savings Plan and includes plans established by other states. So it includes provisions of H.Bill 123, which modifies community reinvestment areas and the 50% to 75% that Kevin's done such a good job of educating us about. And it allows limited home rule townships to use CRAs. I'm sure Kevin knows better about that than I do. Senate Bill 288. This updates employment laws as they pertain to Head Start agencies along with other changes. It includes House Bill 105, which requires public schools to provide developmentally appropriate instruction in sexual child abuse and sexual violence prevention, and requires in-service staff training in child sexual abuse prevention. Finally, the bill allows parents to opt their children out of the abuse prevention and dating violence prevention education. So what that means is, in law now, it's that we have to provide it, and we automatically have to provide it to every student unless the parent opts the child out. So that's different than having to sign a permission slip, if that makes sense. H.Bill 462 is the bill that prohibits swatting. And for those of you that don't know, swatting is reporting a false crime. And so now it's into law that that is a felony. I believe it's a second-degree felony. House Bill 281. This changes the terminology in the Ohio Revised Code as it pertains to people with mental illnesses and disabilities. Someone mentioned that about the MR being derogatory, and thank you for that. And this bill addresses that on a statewide level. So there's a long list of terminology in the developmental disabilities identification and those sorts of things, and a lot of those terms have changed. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but if you want, I have the link that you can look at the entire explanation of those terms and their better, more progressive, let's say, terminologies. So those are all what Governor DeWine signed into legislation. The state senators introduced over 20 bills this week, so I'm not going to do all 20. The most important one, I think, is that they have reintroduced as a new bill, not reintroduced, excuse me, started over with Senate Bill 1. Their first priority was the renaming and redoing, restructuring of the Ohio Department of Education. In December, that bill died in the state Congress, and they were told by Senate leaders that they had to restart, and that's what they've done. So the people who are proponents of restructuring the Ohio Department of Education and renaming it to the Education and Workforce Department, they have started that whole process over. So if you watch Schoolhouse Rock, you know that now it has to go to committee, and then it has to be debated on and all of that stuff. So it's not going to be it'll be months again until we fulfill all those processes and get it wherever it's going to go this round. So that's all I have. As always, contact your leaders if you have any questions or concerns about the bills that they're proposing and or sponsoring, and I can answer any questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to the ATEC report.
Yes, the adult workforce development is a growing part of ATEC. Courses vary in length from 200 hours to 1,500 hours. Some of the prerequisites, some have prerequisites, and most have state certification testing available after completion. Grants and scholarships are available to help offset the cost of these courses. Anyone interested can find information on the ATEC website, or you can call their offices. The volunteer firefighter course just completed with 10 people and 100% state pass rate. The cosmetology class also completed with 100% state pass. The next program starts on January 23rd, where 11 students are currently registered. 15 students are currently registered in STNA course, and 14 students have completed the welding course. Additional fields of study offered are the Introduction to Plant Cultivation, LP Nursing course, which is a 1,500-hour course, LPN to RN course, which is another 1,400 hours, HVAC, which is heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, auto technology and business office specialist, and there's an industrial maintenance course, which includes blueprint reading, maintenance math, introduction to welding, and so forth. So this program is kind of being highlighted this month, and there are a lot of people that are in a position now where they want to change or go in a different direction in their careers, and this is a true resource for the county to have this available for these people. And that's it.
Thank you. That brings us to the report of the superintendent.
Excuse me, before we do that, I have a procedural question. Do we have to vote on these all together, or can we separate one out?
Separate one out. For which number are you talking about?
I would like to separate out number 9 and vote on it as a separate item.
It is a separate item.
Number 9 is separate.
Oh, that's my question.
Which 9 are you?
One, P is the report of the superintendent.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
It's its own item.
It's a separate item.
That we vote on separately.
Yes.
That's my question. Thank you.
Yep. Good.
So as indicated on the agenda, each January, we join the Ohio School Boards Association to celebrate and recognize our local boards of education. You can see listed on there the years of service that each of our current board members have served, and certainly we thank them for their service to our district. With that, I received a proclamation from the governor that I would like to share, which states, whereas more than 700 boards of education oversee and manage the personnel and properties of school districts throughout Ohio, and whereas school board members are elected to establish the policies that provide the framework for their schools, and whereas school board members devote hours of their time each week to provide leadership to their local schools, and whereas school boards fill an important role with members creating and monitoring district plans to make sure students have the tools and skills to reach their full potential, and whereas school boards maintain communications with all segments of their communities to keep the public informed of district activities, and whereas school board members advocate for the best interests of the students served in their districts, and whereas it is important that communities support local school boards so that students receive the best education and are prepared to be the leaders of tomorrow. Now therefore, we, Mike DeWine and John Husted, Governor and Lieutenant Governor of the state of Ohio, do hereby recognize January as School Board Recognition Month. So with that, I also have from the Ohio School Boards Association certificates of appreciation for each of our board members that I will pass along. Sorry. We also have thank you notes from our students that I would ask each administrator to bring up this time.
Thank you.
Just smell it nice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh my gosh.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, these are so cute.
That's very interesting and very hungry. Thank you very much. Oh my gosh.
So again, I would like to acknowledge and thank our school board members for their service and dedication to our district.
Thank you.
That's very cool. Thank you, guys.
Yes, these cards are amazing.
I'm gonna have the best time reading all these. Thank you, thank you.
Okay. That brings us to recognition of the first semester Soaring Eagles.
So just as a reminder, the Soaring Eagles program is a student and staff recognition program that was implemented last year. For all who have received this, they get their picture taken with our mascot Tuffy, and it gets posted on our district social media. They receive a Soaring Eagle backsack, a positive phone call home to whomever they choose for me to share the good news with. And additionally, our Board of Education would also like to recognize them and present them with a certificate. So we did have a number of conflicts this evening, either personal or athletic related, so we don't have all of our Soaring Eagles here from October, November, and December, but certainly we would like to recognize those who are. So when I call your name, please come down on the left, or to my left, I should say, the left aisle, and Mr. Riley, our Assistant Superintendent, will head over there in a moment, and he will escort you up onto the stage. Mrs. Ortiz and myself will present the Soaring Eagles with their certificate. We will capture a picture and hopefully get those emailed out to the parents. They will then continue down. Our board members and the rest of our administration will be on stage to congratulate them as well, and then they can exit down the opposite end of the stage. So if I could have our board members and administrators come to the stage, please. So first, going back to October, we have two Soaring Eagles that are here from October. Our high school math teacher, Mr. Cripple, who was chosen by Mr. Hunt, and fourth grade student, Travis Greenaway, chosen by Mrs. Brigard from GPS. So if you want to head down.
That's a good smile. Congratulations.
For the month of November, the Soaring Eagle that is here is Avery McCrone, second grader from Cork, who was chosen by Mrs. Bowser.
That's a good smile. Congratulations.
And from December, the two Soaring Eagles that are present from the middle school, sixth grader Kaylin Murphy, chosen by Mrs. Pierce, and sophomore at the high school, Kenneth Cisnado, chosen by Mr. Shimsky. And Kenneth. And I just want to double check so that we don't miss anyone. Those are the ones that who I'd received RSVPs from, but if there's anyone else who is here, we would certainly like to recognize you as well. There were a couple that we didn't hear from, so I just want to make sure we're not missing anyone. All right, so those who could not be in attendance, we will make sure that the certificates get to the building principals and we will get those out. Thank you. Next, we have our administrators who will be providing their monthly reports, and we will begin with Mrs. Berzenko.
Try now.
Good evening. I have presented with you a calendar of events for January and February. Today we had Mr. Kujula come back to the district, and he provided all third graders in the district with a dictionary. So it was nice to see him back and talk to some of the Rotary members. We have parent-teacher conferences coming up in February. We have a Kindness Week that all 3 elementaries will be participating in. We have a Valentine's Day celebration, if anyone would like to come out and see that. We also have a PBIS assembly coming up and a dance that is being arranged by Mrs. Blevins in the junior class. She's going to host all 3 elementaries, not necessarily on the same day, so that we have an opportunity to have mothers and a significant child and a significant other come to the dances. They're going to be 2 separate ones. So we look forward to that. We haven't had that before. I know that's something our AESA has always wanted to do. So we're looking forward to that. So I'd like to say thanks to Mrs. Blevins, if she's in here, for arranging that. One of our soaring eagles this month is Mrs. Howard. I'm sure a lot of you in here know Mrs. Howard or has had Mrs. Howard. She was nominated by Mrs. Nappy for our soaring eagle this month, and I'm just going to quote a little bit about what Mrs. Nappy said. She said that Mrs. Howard is often the first school experience for a family and a child. She's also positive and encouraging with her students. She works very hard to see the whole child and address social and emotional concerns as well as the academics. She's an effective communicator with families. She uses multiple outlets to reach all families. She tries to make them feel very much a part of their child's school experience. Her genuine love of her career is obvious in every conversation. Mrs. Nappy's third graders often talk about their memories of kindergarten fondly, and so do the parents. Mrs. Nappy and all of us, if we're lucky enough, we hear her beautiful singing in the morning at the Xerox machine. Every morning she walks in and she's humming a tune. It's really pretty. She can actually sing. Other than that, we are doing extended learning. Kindergarten and first graders are the focus for this month in reading and math. We have 14 students that are attending every Tuesday and Thursday, and I'd like to thank Mrs. Cozy, Mrs. Howard, and Mrs. Waring for providing these services to the students this month. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Berzenko.
Next, we have Ms. Hrina.
All right, good evening. Happy New Year. We've been back now a few weeks. Thank you, Mrs. Berzenko, for mentioning Mr. Kujla returning today and bringing those dictionaries, and the third graders were so excited to get a book with words and sign language and all those wonderful things that wasn't a technology device for once. So it was excited to see kids excited about a book today. A book with words, a lot of words. Especially when he showed them the longest word possible in the English dictionary, which is in the back. So while he was there, he gave a message that goes along kind of with my first update. Mrs. Porcello put together a program to start the school year called Character Focus, and it gives us an asset for each month of the school year to focus on. So in December, we focused on self-control, and there's a picture in front of you, and you can also find it on my Twitter page for the students that were nominated by their classroom teachers for that. But this month is perseverance, so Mr. Kujla gave a nice talk on perseverance, like I do every morning on the announcements, you know, hard work, goal setting, and doing your best each and every day. So it was just kind of nice to hear that today. We as well are doing extended learning. We're doing a K-2 program. We have 26 students that are staying after school, which is a long day for our little ones, to focus on literacy twice a week, and we have 7 teachers that are staying to help with that. So thank you to those teachers that are staying. Extended learning will last for a month in all, and it'll begin again in February for our 3rd through 5th graders to get ready for state testing. Also, congratulations to Layla Stefanski, who's in 4th grade at GPS. She is serving as our district rep at the spelling bee at the middle school coming up here. Gianna Alls is serving as our alternate. But new this year, the kids received last week a vocabulary list of words. So not only do they have to spell words, they have to define words. That's new this year with the county bee. So Geneva's going along with that to prepare our students. So we're doing it as well at the district bee. So yes, so our 4th graders that participate got a 6th grade list, a 7th grade list, and an 8th grade list. Also back after 3 years, we are going to have the Me and My Guy dance coming up on the 27th. We haven't had it since before COVID. It's basically like a father-daughter dance, but female students can bring a parent, a guardian, an older sibling, and there's a minimal fee that our PTO charges for that event. And then there'll also be something for the boys to do with their moms in May, so that way no one feels left out. So that's our January update. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Doherty.
I need another hand. Ditto on everything they said happening at Cork, but thank you, that's my report. No, but we have some news from the grades. 5th grade's been very busy. I know Christmas is over, but our 1 5th grade class, they did use their technology skills to put together slideshow. Each group created a couple slides. The teacher, Mrs. Kirk, put some questions together for them, and then at the end they put it all together with holidays around the world. So they got to choose a country and look at their traditions for each country. So that was fun for them. And then Mrs. Kirk also we're excited about this. She happened upon other 5th grade teachers who were looking to have pen pals in all 50 states. So they are receiving postcards, they're sending postcards. She went to the Ashtabula County Visitors Bureau to get some postcards donated. Thank you to them, they did. And now she's in the process of wanting to put together a huge United States map and then posting the postcards on that so the rest of the students in the building can share in the experiences that they're having. The kids really look forward to it. So she does receive those postcards and shares them, but now with her class, but now she'd like to share them. And our students are sending them as well. So a lot of our teachers are out there on social media looking up ideas and getting together with other colleagues, not necessarily around here, but throughout the United States and further. And so they're always looking for some interesting ideas for our students to experience. 3rd grade, I did miss Mr. Kujla today, but he was out again delivering those dictionaries. Our students do look forward to that. Actually, they have been asking about that because they know that in the past that's happened. So they just love having that book. I mean, like Miss Farina said, in our age of technology, to watch them actually have that book in their hand, they're so excited and that they got that and it's theirs. So sometimes they're like not realizing that they get to keep that. And then our word for the district is elevate, and we do have a All About Me, our staff edition, our wonderful Miss Jen, and it's Mrs. Limpert, but everybody calls her Miss Jen at our school. She's our playground monitor and librarian and goes above and beyond. She's absolutely wonderful. She came up with the idea to give all the staff members a card with our picture on it, and then in a nameplate, and we put a little bit of interesting fact about ourselves on it, and then she's posting them, and it's really just to open up the communication dialogue between students and the teachers and the staff, the whole staff, to see if maybe you have anything in common, and again, to make them feel comfortable with approaching an adult. So she's a great idea. So we're excited to see that finished product. We're working on that now. And then we are continuing with SOAR and our character traits. And our 2nd through 5th grade, we have a bulletin board down the main hallway for each grade level, but 2nd through 5th represented each letter of our SOAR. So we've been working on that just to remind. We do morning announcements. And then S, stand up for everyone every day. O, and that O needs to be capitalized in there and bolded. I did the B. Be organized and prepared for school. A, always do your best. And R, respect yourself, your peers, and your school. So we're constantly talking about that. Of course, Monday was in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King, and many of the classes have been doing activities in honor of that important event. So, and then lastly, Bookmobile is coming back, so we're excited about that. It's been a long time since we've had Bookmobile, so we've got that all scheduled. They'll be there the 4th Thursday of the month, and our students are looking forward to that as well. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Labors will be providing the report for the middle school.
All right, I'm going to mix up and go this way. So, all right, Mr. Mullahan's not here today, so I'm here to present. So we just started our extended learning program. It's been going on for Tuesdays and Thursdays so far. And they're basically focusing on ELA and math. In addition, we're also having them prepare for their state testing, but also work on regular classwork for the remaining of the school. We started this week See Something, Say Something, which is already been very successful. We've started the last 2 days. The last day will be 8th graders tomorrow. We've seen already positive impacts on that. We already had a student who saw something, said something to us, and we were able to investigate that and take care of that situation. We want to just, again, the See Something, Say Something is just basically Joe Carroll comes out, he does presenting strategies and lessons for students to be positive influences in the school and to recognize when the opportunity arises to let trusted individuals in the school be aware of when something is wrong. We also know that this month is National School Board Appreciation Month, so we just want to thank you, the board, for that and everything you do. And then some positive highlights also is that all our teachers at our school work really hard, and so we always try to highlight some of the great things that they do that you guys don't get to see. And so one of the things was our art teacher, Elizabeth Paskey. She's been working hard on some really neat ceramic projects. She does it every year. She makes these bells out of clays, these bells, and it's really neat to see the students, and you can see the pictures in the board report. We also have winter sports. The boys basketball just finished up their season. They worked hard, and we want to say a special thanks to Coach Odell and Coach Hrina-Treharn for their working hard with these teams. And then our girls basketball season just started their season, and their first game was on Tuesday. And then lastly is our wrestling team. They were in a tournament this past weekend. They did a phenomenal job. Out of 10 schools, they ended up getting first place, and they received a trophy, and that you can see those also on the board reports. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Weatherholt?
First, I'd like to congratulate the 12 seniors that moved one step closer to graduation by passing their Algebra 1 test. We got those results today, so congratulations to them. I personally like to thank the board for your years of service. Thank you guys very much for all you do. Last year, and maybe this will help with some of the things I heard from the parents. Last year we had a 2-day mental health and wellness program. The focus was solely on mental health. The goal was to spend 2 days where we made awareness, education, self-care for students and staff. And we focused on mental health on the first day, awareness and mental health education. And on the second day, we focused on self-care for students and staff. A lot of times when you put a program like that in place, you get off to a good start and you get one good year out of it and it goes to the wayside. We're gonna follow up this year, thanks to the help of the Asheville County Mental Health and Recovery Service Board. GSS is going to be holding a 1-day mental health day on Tuesday, January 24th. So we are going to do it again, and we're going to do stuff with our students to try to help them with kindness, wellness, and to take care of themselves. We will be reestablishing our 4 Club. We have a 4 Club here from Rachel's Challenge. We're going to reestablish that by having Rachel's Challenge back to the school. The students will be participating in scavenger hunts. We had the person scavenger hunt. We had the staff do it at our last staff meeting. It was hilarious watching them run around. I think Gina Monahan won with 17, and I think Mrs. Nancy Barbeau, who is here, came in second with 16, but good job to them. They're going to be doing team building activities, And then we're going to do the Rachel's Challenge, Positive Traits Assembly along with that. I wanted to make sure I thanked Rob and Christopher and Kim DeBacker for all their hard work in making sure that we're going to have a successful event. Let us be grateful to the people who make us happy. They are the charming gardeners who make our souls blossom. Marcel Frost. I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mrs. Porcello?
All right, good evening. Feel weird, I have to bring my phone up here. I only made 7 copies of my report. Short and sweet. The special ed profile, the rest of it was released early January. And on it, there was just one indicator that wasn't met by the district, and that was the alternate assessment. They look at the numbers of students taking the alternate assessment compared to the number of students in the district that took the standard Ohio tests. So the standard on the profile is 1% or less. For the reading, we had 1.09% of the students taking alternate assessment, and for math, 1.11% of the students taking alternate assessment. These numbers are down from about 2.39 last year, or the year previous. So we're making progress. To me, it's one of those, you have to meet a set of standards in order to take the test. So kind of is what it is. And we're close. We're really close. I submitted the initial list of students for the federal quota for blind students. And I know I mentioned this last year too. This is just a list of students that are visually impaired that qualify for about $450 each of monies that go to their visual impairment teacher to provide educational materials to them. And we use Jerry Hillier, who works with them, and he does pull from that money to provide some materials for our 2 students that are on that list. Last but not least, I'd like to thank Glenn Blablow. We had a quick resignation of Mrs. Beebe as our special ed supervisor due to family health issues. She didn't want to, but she needed to stay home with her father-in-law. So understood. I called Glenn, he put on his cape, and he came 2 days later, and he has saved the day because there's no way possible that I could cover 5 buildings in 4 days. So I just wanted to give him a thank you for coming out of retirement and helping us out.
Thank you.
Mr. Riley?
Okay, so in my board report this evening, first off, good evening, everybody.
Okay. Good evening.
So my board report talked about a little bit about the professional development day that's coming up in the morning here this coming Friday. We have 4 hours that we've blocked. That time will be devoted towards our intervention specialists and K through 2 teachers going through some dyslexia training, continue with those modules so they can get closer to the 18 hours that they need here shortly per the state rules. We're also going to have other staff members going through gifted training. We keep inching our way towards the 15 hours that we are trying to get them throughout the course of the year. Our goal is to keep focusing on the 8 competencies, which I'll go over a little bit later on this evening. But the focus this evening, or the focus will be on differentiation and social emotional learning for our gifted students. And also, finally, the phys ed and the health teachers, through the support of the Ashtabula County Superintendents, they arranged for the United States Tennis Association to come and meet with those folks in our Ox gym, and along with all PE teachers pretty much throughout the county, to kind of give them some pointers on the program that they have and the opportunities that they have. And my understanding is they're bringing in some freebies for them, so the staff will certainly like those things along the way. District leadership team, we met on January 10th, was our most recent meeting. We are in the process, we have to complete what's called the one needs assessment. Once we answer a litany of questions per each building, that transfers into the one plan, all on one kind of seamless document, I suppose. And then once we complete the one plan, that helps us with all of our federal funding. So in terms of getting all this information, all the data collection that's going to need to happen, the administrative team and those that are on the district leadership team are certainly going to have to put some time in to make sure that they get the information correctly submitted by the April 30th deadline. A little bit of a testing update. Mr. Wellhill did talk about the seniors that inched their way closer to graduation. I did provide in my board report the general snapshot of the results that were provided today. The online for the math and the science and the social studies were released. Within that, on the last page of that particular document, I kind of organized it a little bit so you can kind of take a look at the number of students that took those particular tests, as well as our percentage passing rate versus the state percentage passing rate. You can see that in 4 out of the 5 tests that were released today, we were above the state average, which is good. We had talked about that earlier on in the fall, how we seem to be, everybody still seems to be recovering from COVID with the learning loss, but we at Geneva seem to be a little bit ahead of the game with the other results. And that's a testament to the kids and to the staff who's working with them. And last but not least, in terms of a gifted update, been working kind of super excited about this, working with Lauren Webster at the library. We are working towards various different programs that we're trying to put in place that are all STEM related. First off, we're going to have some library field trips. So those students that are in the elementary level that have been identified and gifted, each building will go to the library. GPS is going to go on the 9th of February, Cork on February 14th, Austinburg on the 16th, and they're going to go through some programs dealing with STEM-related activities, maybe a little bit of a short story time to connect what they're doing, and the librarians will take them around the building to show them where the resources are, how to make sure they get a library card, just the various things that are available at the library for them. And then also we're having a parent and a student night at the library. March 1st, we're inviting students and their families from grades 3 through 5, and March 8th, grades 6 through 8, from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock each night. On March 1st, when the elementary students and their parents go, there's going to be a tech petting zoo, so there's going to be some robots and some VR headsets that are going to be there. An owl pellet dissection. I remember my son doing that back when he was in 2nd, 3rd grade. The connection with the biology and science there. They're going to do something called Explore the Science of Taste, something about building a Lego with Lego sets, and then they're going to have to taste salt water and sugar water and taste some difference on that, so that'll be kind of neat. A decoder ring activity, where they're hopeful that the elementary students will build their own code and have their friends or their parents try to decipher it that evening. And last but not least, perhaps the favorite one, is going to be an egg drop in the library, hard-boiled eggs. That's the only way she was going to do that one, but that's the way that is. March 8th, there's going to be a little bit of a vision experiment with the middle schoolers that are going to be there. They're going to also go through a balloon-powered cars engineering challenge. Slime building, which sounds like fun, where they're going to have some glow-in-the-dark slime that they're going to build some things with in terms of chemistry activity, and also the tech petting zoo and the owl pellet dissection. So again, parents are invited along with their students on both those nights to kind of participate. And finally, we're working towards creating an essay contest. We decided that the writing prompt was going to be, what does soar like an eagle mean? And the submission should be no longer than 2 pages, and their goal is that when they get these items submitted, they will post them around the library. The essay contest is going to run from February 28th to March 24th, with the winners being announced shortly thereafter. Interestingly enough, Mr. Weatherholt dropped somebody's name earlier on at the end of his presentation there. I'm going to likewise do so. I learned that apparently February 28th was selected because it's recognized as National Essay Day. And apparently the birth date, it also coincides with the birth date of Michel de Montaigne, who lived from February 28th, 1553 to September 13th, 1592, a philosopher during the French Revolution, but also known as popularizing the essay as a literary genre. So there we go. So we're going to have prizes given for both 3rd through 5th grade and 6th through 8th grade bands. And we're hopeful that maybe a Board of Education member or 2 would serve as the judges for that particular competition. And if you're interested, just please let me know by the February 1st so we can kind of plan accordingly. Finally, I did submit a newsletter that I kind of created for the administrative team. My goal is to try to keep that moving forward the best I can, hopefully a couple times a month. And certainly last but not least, I did talk about the DLT earlier on and the hard work that they've already put in. It is not easy to leave the office or the classroom for a full day, or pretty much a full day, to work on some information that needs to happen, but they have done a great job with that, and certainly their time is very valuable, but I do appreciate all that their hard work that they've done so far and what lies ahead for them in the next few months. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. I love
We're going to
that.
give Mr. Riley a moment or two to transition. He's actually next up on our agenda again, as he will be giving the gifted presentation. And the board, you may want to transition to the first row or two, because he will be projecting on the screen.
You give me a microphone, it'll be up here for an hour. It's all good.
Or you could just spin around if you'd prefer to stay in your current seat.
We good, Mr. Markajon? We're going to find out, right? Am I back up there? Awesome. Good evening, everyone. I was asked by the Board of Education to do a little presentation on our gifted program this evening, and kind of where we stand and things we're doing and what we need to do kind of moving forward. Three kind of topics that I'm going to try and hit this evening. Compliance situation. It's more than just the Ohio Revised Code 3324, but we'll talk a little bit about what we're doing with both of the Ohio Revised Code as well as the Ohio Administrative Code. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the focal points of our program currently in the district that's allowing us to meet the needs of the students. And finally, what are some general characteristics of a gifted student, and how can we, as community members, families, parents, and school all work together to try to do the best that we can to educate our gifted students. A little bit of an overview. This is right out of our gifted service and ID plan. Gifted services in our district are delivered in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code and the Ohio Administrative Code. In that policy, and also within state law, districts are required to identify gifted students. However, districts are not required to provide gifted education services. And kind of what I'm finding is over the last several years, kind of in certain, I guess, from what I'm reading across the country, more and more they're not putting much emphasis on gifted programs overall, but Geneva is. And that's kind of nice to see that we're really kind of allocating some resources and fundings to what we need to do. So from a legality and compliance standpoint, the items on the left there are from Ohio Revised Code 3324. The bullet points that are there, the 5 of them that are listed, those are the main points of the Ohio Revised Code 3324. Talks about adopting the plan, an acceleration policy, the screening identification process, and things that we have to go through on that end. On the right-hand side of the screen, the Ohio Administrative Code talks about those particular items that are there. It talks about the staff professional development, dealing with the competencies, and we'll go over that in a little bit. It talks about WEP development, which is the written education plans, how we identify the students, and that we do have to follow the ODE's list of assessments that are there. In terms of compliance, we are in compliance with every single aspect of both of those situations, and that is good to see. Sure. Mm-hmm. Correct, but we have, you know, can't really tell. We do have the plan, and we offer the services, right? Yeah, that's kind of the state. Yep. But what is good to see is that we are in compliance, and that is wonderful. Just a general enrollment, this was presented at the beginning of the school year. We have dropped from 177 students down to 176 as of today. Apparently there was one student from the high school that has moved on and withdrawn or whatnot. So it's down from 74 to down to 73, but all of their buildings remain the same at this point. So the assessment process really that we use in the district, and also that is used according to state law, it requires us to have 2 whole grade screening opportunities per school year. You have to do it once in the K through 2 grade band, and another one once in the 3 through 6 grade bands. Screenings are in the following areas: superior cog, creative thinking, reading, and math at that point in time. Our plan talks about we screen in the following areas, which is more so we hit superior cog, creative thinking, reading, math, science, and social studies. We do provide 2 additional opportunities for assessments to occur from families based on referrals from teachers, parents, and or students. As of this point, we've already had about 3 and maybe 4 families that have reached out and asked for their children to be assessed. And we're working through, we've already done a couple of them, and we have a couple more that are scheduled. In February, we will be doing grades 2 and grade 5 grade level sweeps the beginning, and that'll help us determine the students that are eligible moving into 3rd grade and 6th grade respectively for our gifted program moving forward. And by taking both the Iowa and the COGAT tests, we will be able to address all of those areas that are on the first bullet point area there. And that is a step in the right direction from where we were last year at this point. So I provided a couple of examples. So if I'm a student, for instance, and this is off of our service plan, which this is on our website. If I'm a 2nd grade student and I take the Iowa assessment coming up here in February, and I get my math score comes back and I'm in the 93rd percentile. Well, I failed to be identified in math, but that doesn't mean that there's not another opportunity for me. So I'm going to get reassessed using another test, and if I score in that 75th and 95th percentile, excuse me, I will qualify for the program with math identification. So there is always a grade level sweep, and then if you're close but you don't quite make it, there's another opportunity right after the fact. So it's kind of a double opportunity for them to qualify. Kind of another example, if I'm a parent of a 4th grade student and I want my son to be assessed in math for inclusion in the program, I can contact the building principal, the gifted coordinator. That student would be administered the WISC in math, and the student's score would either qualify them or doesn't qualify them for the program. And this is a process that we've done again with a couple of students already this school year that I was mentioning earlier. The specific assessments and the scores that we use here in the district are on our website in the district's ID and service plan. There is a hyperlink at the bottom of this particular slide along with a couple other slides, because this resource will be posted on our website so families can go ahead and access and read that information as much as possible. One of the other aspects that's in there talks about the acceleration policy. Again, 3324 talks about that. We have an acceleration policy in place. It talks about early entrance to kindergarten and 1st grade. We have whole grade level and or subject acceleration. We have an early graduation option. I mean, there are students out there that are maybe in their, let's say they're in 6th grade ELA, and they're in the programs that's there, and they're just doing a phenomenal job. Well, maybe they can get their schedule adjusted, so maybe that they're working through some 7th grade coursework in ELA as opposed to just 6th grade. So they can get a kind of whole grade acceleration or just an individual subject grade level. Written education plans have to occur. We have done that this particular school year. They have to be annually documented. And what is listed there are the minimal requirements for ODE. We put all of those that are listed in that document, and we also put a couple more that aren't listed, but we want to make sure that we're in full compliance of all of those. The last part there where it talks about the copy of the The WEP has to go to parents. The staff are provided the services listed. We are now doing that program online in our district, and it's electronically submitted to parents. So we have a record of when it goes to the parents. We have a record if they sign it and return it back to us. It's more easily to track. Prior years, we would do paper copies, and that was, it was good, but it was somewhat problematic when you could lose a paper, maybe in somebody's book bag going home and back and forth. But now that it's online, that will always be there. And again, that WEP then, if I'm in second grade and or third grade rather, and I had a WEP written for me, it will be there in fourth grade when the teachers pull it up, and then they can make adjustments accordingly. So that will help out the teachers kind of moving forward with the writing of those documents. Briefly talking about the characteristics of a gifted student, and there's really 5 areas that are up there: intellectual, academic, creative, leadership, and artistic. What I have in the next few slides, this is not an all-encompassing list by any stretch of the imagination. However, it may give you an idea if your child, if you believe that they might be gifted, you can kind of have an idea what they'll kind of look for, or what some of the ideas that may tip you off on that. In terms of intellectual, for instance, a high level of vocabulary language, they can logical thinking, ability to generate ideas, original ideas and solutions, and they're very goal-oriented, maybe a longer attention span. Those are just some general characteristics. For the academic and leadership, as they're posted up there, from an academic standpoint, strong memorization skills, leadership, kind of that ability to motivate others. If they're in group work, they can kind of get everybody behind them and moving forward. They're very confident. They cooperate with others extremely well, and especially in that classroom learning environment. And finally, with creative thinking and artistic, are listed there along the way. Artistic, certainly strong understanding of spatial relationships, physically active, and what we hear more times than not is the creativity in the arts, the music, the dance, or the theater. Competencies we talked about during my board report very briefly. There are 8 in total. Our staff is working through those from a professional development standpoint. As I said, we're going to be talking about social emotional learning and differentiation in a couple of days here. We did talk about WEPs at the beginning of the year. We're always talking about data to use to monitor student growth and the such. But in one way or another, we need to address all of those as we kind of keep moving through each school year. And each school year, we keep spiraling and making them a little bit more deeper, making them a little bit more complex and more understanding as we move forward. The teachers, the staff has to attain 15 clock hours that are needed. And we're trying to do that during our district-wide PD days and staff meetings. Once they receive that 15 hours, we just keep it going for the next year, and the next year, and the next year, and eventually it turns over to the teachers having to do it all on their own. But after they've got those 45 clock hours, we keep tracking it and making sure that they're staying current with the policies and the legalities, I guess, that are assigned with that. 60. I'm sorry. Thank you, Dr. Treharn. 60. Specific details regarding that are in that OAC 3301-5115, which again, that is a hyperlink that will take you to that document should anyone want some further details about exactly each year, what it looks like, and what happens in those various years along the way. But again, our goal is that we will attain those 15 clock hours by the end of this year. The staff and the community, the parents, the school district, we need to work hand in hand together. Really, we have to be collaborative. We have to support one another. There's going to be times where we're going to keep growing in this program and learning from one another. Some opportunities for parents really is that you can join the Ohio Association for Gifted Children. There's also a national organization filled with all kinds of resources, a litany of information that can help you and help everyone at home or in school with their students moving forward. Ask you to be engaged, stay informed. If you have a question about your son or daughter that is in the gifted program, please reach out to their building principals, please talk with their teachers, see what you can do on a home front to help them moving forward, because we are in this together. It's more or less a partnership, I guess I would call it. I've listed some available resources and supports. Those are all hyperlinked and will be be online so families can access that. This information was presented at the parent meeting that we had earlier in the school year, which was very well attended. The families, I've heard, have gone to some of these websites and they found the resources very helpful. So I would encourage everyone to kind of take a moment or two when you get a chance and just check out a few of those along the way. Our steps for this year and beyond. This year, we have a definite commitment to ensuring the staff, grades 3 through 12, receive that 15 clock hours worth of professional development. Our services at the elementary level are in place to support the classroom teachers. We did not have a gifted individual as we do Denise Hunt this year, although it's on a limited basis. It is still something that we have that was not there at least last year. We're identifying of students to correspond with teachers for EMIS and state reporting. We're doing our best to make sure that every student that is eligible to receive services is getting those services, and that we are documenting it to the state so that we can receive credit on our local report card and any type of reports that would come out moving forward. As I indicated before, the WEPs and the written education plans and the written acceleration plans electronically are sent and documented. That is a big step that the staff did this school year, and tremendously appreciate the teachers that we kind of moved through that, because it was a brand new program and brand new process for many of them. We did have a gifted parent night in October, attended by more than 50 families, and that was great to see, and we'll look forward to kind of continuing that. And then connection with the community resources for any STEM-related activities, connecting with Lauren Webster at the library. Maybe we can get some local businesses involved moving forward, but we want to try to expand that and try to bring in the library, make some connections to the community to help our students and help our district grow in that manner. Moving forward in the next school year, I really think I guess in my role here the first year of it, we want to continue and build upon the progress that we're currently going under. We've talked about hiring a gifted teacher at the middle school and maybe the elementary school levels to kind of support what we're doing. I'd like to get an earlier start with the WEPs and the WAPs. We started that a little late this year. I think getting an earlier start for the teachers would be helpful, and obviously would help our kids out as well. And then use that information from the PD days to create a more robust PD setting for our teachers. That's kind of in the works of kind of what we want that to look like. But we certainly want to create some professional development opportunities for our teachers, which will ultimately benefit our students. And that is really all I have for that presentation. Try to get a multitude of those areas, but again, it's a partnership that we're in this together, and we really, just by working together, and again, if any parents have any questions about their son or daughter and participation in the program, or are they in the program, please reach out to the building principal so we can have those conversations kind of moving forward, so we can support everybody moving forward. Thank you.
I just like to thank Mr. Riley again for giving that report. Hopefully everyone found it informative as we continue to have conversations around gifted education.
I recommend approval of the attached amended aquatic center use agreement with Spire in regards to conducting swimming competitions during the 22-23 season. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I just want to note this was approved on a prior agenda, but there's just been one update to include who would provide the timing person for the meets.
I'm sorry, say that again. Who would what?
Provide the timing.
Oh. Okay, thank you.
Roll call?
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Milliken Dixon.
Yes.
Okay, we've received an insurance renewal proposal. It was.
Number six.
Oh, okay, excuse me. I recommend that the board approve the enclosed Ohio Schools Council policy change resolution.
Is that the Title IX?
No.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
If you recall, the Ohio Schools Council offers group purchasing programs. We're a member.
This was their, it was their statewide resolution? Sharon?
Correct. They sent this to all districts who are members, asking basically for school boards to adopt the resolution in order to allow superintendents of the member districts to vote to modify, supplement, or amend their policies and agreements.
Is there any other discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes. Okay, now moving on. We received an insurance renewal proposal that was received from the Ohio School Plan today for the coverage of the district's buildings, the contents, fleet, and general liability. The treasurer recommends approval of the insurance renewal proposal from the Ohio School Plan at a package premium of $90,710. Last year's premium was $86,233, and Mr. Lillie had provided us most of the increase is just because the valuation of some of the property has increased. That's the bulk of the increase. Have a motion?
Moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Does this information show us where the increases in value happened?
This proposal doesn't. The email that I sent you earlier, that I forwarded to you, shows any differences. As Mrs. Ortiz said, the biggest increases in some of the exposures, for instance, the property value that's insured, increased 5%. Last year they did a every 5 years, this insurance company sends out and does a evaluation appraisal. And our property limits increased greatly then. This year, they applied a 5% increase to that as an inflationary increase. In the past, it was 2%, but given the nature of cost increases right now and everything, they applied 5%. That's the biggest part of the increase. Some of the other exposures increased a little bit. And then overall, there's a 1.38% rate increase. So the increase in the rates that are applied increased very slightly. Total increase was 5.2% from last year to this year.
Okay, thank you.
Roll call?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
And Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
That brings us to item number 8 with the following personnel actions for the 22-23 school year. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
And Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Item number 9, I recommend the approval for Geneva High School choir students to travel to New York City in the spring of '23 outside of the following days, April 12th through May 3rd. Do we have a motion?
I'll move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have discussion?
Yes, I would like to make some comments.
Okay.
First, I would like to address some of the comments that were made previously. The trip was not denied today by myself, and I did not require that they attend the day after the teacher returns. I fully support this trip and the students going, just not during state testing. I communicated with Mrs. Mather how wonderful I think the program is. I certainly enjoy going and seeing the choir and the Geneva Image perform, but I also feel that state testing is and should be a priority. And so certainly there are other options of dates for them to attend that I hope that they take advantage of. And so I do support the trip, but again, not during state testing.
My belief is that the dates that Mrs. Mather has carefully chosen are the best for the students. And so I have to disagree with Dr. Treharn's assessment that they should choose another date. It's not that simple. It took her a really long time, as I hope that you read her email about the conflicts that other students have. Our students are overextended and overscheduled. And to expect them to never miss anything is preposterous. So once in a while you have to choose, and I think that going on the dates that Mrs. Mather has proposed is the best thing for the students.
I will echo that. One of the thoughts that I had on this is that I don't think there's ever going to be a date that every student is going to be able to go. And I looked at the justification for the dates, and I believe that the best dates to choose is the dates that the majority of the kids can go. Whatever date that is, I don't know. I was not involved in or given information about how many kids would have to miss a certain weekend if that weekend was chosen as their travel. So in my opinion, I think all dates should be open for the choir to be able to go. I don't know that we as a board have the ability to regulate the testing part in terms of saying these students are testing, they can't go, or I don't know how the board can regulate that, but I think all the dates should be open.
Mr. Arndt, do you have anything?
Well, I believe that what we have here tonight is some unhappy people because they can't go someplace that we want them to go on the time that they want to go. We have a superintendent for our district who is not only licensed, but she's certified in all things education. And she knows when the best time for those students to go. And it's not during testing. There are all kinds of other windows, but it doesn't fit with one person's schedule. I think that they should go during the spring break. I think that's in that window. But we have a little window here on this paper where we say, outside the following days. What are those dates and why can't they go on them dates? We're spending all this time and listening to these reasonings because someone cannot go when they want to go.
It's not that simple, Mr. Arndt.
Ms. Fisher, do you have anything to say?
This is tough. I think the testing period is a long, it's not like just 2 days or 1 day or you miss it and you're done. There is the ability, the state has evidently decided that there could be some scheduling conflictions and things that would make it necessary to have a longer period of testing. And I tend to think that this might be one of those types of things. I mean, you have spring break in there, you have all kinds of things that could interfere, and so the extended date range is made to allow off days to be used for testing. And they said that they could either test before or after. So if there was any concern about test material, any kind of illicit things going on with testing, they could take it before they leave and leave town, and nobody will know the difference, you know, what was on it.
They
So-
cannot take it prior to when the rest of the students are scheduled to take the test, just to clarify that.
Yeah, there were just 4 or 5?
No, I'm saying they can't take the test prior to when our district has scheduled for everyone else to take that test.
They can't take it early, they have to take it late.
Okay. Yeah, I tend to think to let them take it late.
So, if nobody else has anything to say, I have something to say. So, in 2015, I went on this trip with my daughter, who is now 23. It is a phenomenal trip. You learn a lot. It's very educational outside of just choir. I learned a lot. I'd never been to New York City, so I'm very appreciative of that trip. So I would not want anybody to not be able to go on that trip. But with that being said, we are here for education, and the state gives us the window for testing. So that's one of our priorities, because everybody's been saying Geneva's no longer a premier district because we're no longer #1 in the testing realm. So I am very torn on this whole topic, because I could say I disagree with this, I could say I agree with it. So I'm having a very hard time with it, because I see both sides equally. So that's my opinion on it.
Education's about more than just testing.
No, I know that.
Mr. Riley himself, Mr. Riley's presentation about gifted lists artistic and creative giftedness. Of course, as one of the 8 of 8 things that we determine what makes a child gifted, artistry and creativity are one of those things. It's not just reading and math and science, which are vitally important to our education. But education is more than that. It has to be, it needs to be.
So I guess the question is, if this doesn't pass, then the trip is definitely not approved because it requires board approval, correct?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay, and as the motion stands right now, the testing, or the trip would not be able to occur on the dates that have been selected at this moment.
Do we have a motion yet?
Yes.
What was the motion?
That's to accept this.
Accept this statement from Dr. Treharn, okay.
That's how we started the discussion.
Is there a way to amend this recommendation? But Dr. Treharn, you won't do that, will you?
It's not my place to amend.
Your recommendation's not your place?
No, it would be the board's place.
Okay.
The board can amend the motion. It requires a second, it's debatable, and it requires a majority vote, which means 4 out of 5, not a simple.
Does the original motion
Or I'm
member
s-
have to
I'm
amend
sorry,
his motion?
just requires a majority, so that would be 3.
3 of 5.
Sorry?
The original person who made the motion, do they have to amend their motion? Because that was the first, and then there was a second, so that has to be voted on. Unless that person agrees to amend his motion.
If you chose to, you could, but the OSBA parliamentary motions at a glance says you can amend a motion. It would require an additional motion, a second, and introduce what you want to amend, and then a majority vote could amend the motion that's on the table.
But I think he's saying, does the original person that made the motion for this action have to make the amended motion?
If the original person that made the motion wants to change it, they could, but it's not required. It could be a separate motion, a separate second, it would be debatable, and then it would require a majority of vote to amend the motion that's on the table.
Okay, I have another question that you might be able to answer, Mr. Lillie. So when I spoke, I said I wasn't sure if it was up to the board to set the dates that could be used, that we would be able to override this block of time for testing. I guess what I'm asking is that the responsibility of the board to say, yeah, these kids can go, and yeah, we want to allow them to take the test after they come back, or is that out of our realm of jurisdiction? Because I tried to find policy on it, and I couldn't find policy.
Well, I mean, I think that's what you've already talked about, is that you can amend this, the motion on the table restricts the days that the choir could go to be outside of the testing window of April 12th to May 3rd. And my understanding is there's a large window from when they can go for this competition or whatever they're doing.
Yeah, but
If the board chooses that they want to allow them to go during the testing window, then you would need to amend the motion that's on the table as recommended by the superintendent. You would need to change it and vote on that.
That was my question. Does Dr. Treharn have to amend her recommendation?
Yeah.
Or can we amend, I got it, yeah.
But if we go ahead and open up that time frame and say we don't want any restriction on it, is there still the ability to say that there are certain students that cannot go because they have testing? And whose responsibility is that? We changed the motion to allow the dates, but does that allow the students? I just don't know that answer.
Well, I'm not the expert on that. That would be the superintendent or your principals.
But I mean, in terms of
probably.
policy, we set policy, but is the policy going to be, well, the students that have to take the test can't go? Or they can go and they could make up the test?
And whose decision is that?
Right. If we
That's a
open
good
this
question.
up,
Thank you.
if we open this up, obviously it's our decision to say, yeah, you know, your dates are free, go ahead and go. But what about the kids that are going to be testing? I just don't know how that falls into our realm of policy.
Is that a question
approving.
for our testing coordinator?
Mr. Riley? Could then someone administratively say those students can't attend the trip, or how does that work? That's the parent's decision. Right.
So do we have an amended motion? Do we have roll call now? Do we have further discussion? Where are we at?
I concur with you. I've been there, and I've taken kids from this school there. I've actually been there twice. Trips from this school, students. It's a fantastic place to go. But this is a educational institution. It's a school. And testing, we're here to teach and to test and to move on and to promote. Testing is priority.
Well, I know when I was in school, I didn't have an opportunity to do this.
Me neither.
Our big trip was to pile on a bus, go to Cleveland and hear the opera. It was something like this was just totally out of our realm of possibility. And to have this as a possibility for these kids, and not only to go as a visitor, but go as a participant in an activity, it just really is fantastic.
But we're voting to give them the opportunity. They just want to pick the time that they go.
Because she's having surgery. The director can't prepare the children when she's not in full health to do that. She didn't pick these dates because it's the best for her schedule or on some whim. She picked the dates to attend this competition based on her medical need to recover and be able to train the students.
So do you have an amended motion?
Is that what we do? Then yes.
That is.
I move that we allow Mrs. Mather to choose the dates for the New York City trip.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Do we have more discussion? Do you take a roll call?
Would it No, you would take a roll call on the amended, well, you would take a roll call first on amending the motion.
Oh.
And then you would take a roll call on the standing motion. But would it be helpful to know, because I don't, what period of time this trip can be taken? Beginning date to end date. I mean, all we have is the test, all you have is the testing
April.
window. What's the window of opportunity for taking this trip?
Competition season is April. Sometimes there's a little in the last week of March, first week of May, but basically choir competition season is April.
Well,
Dr.
according
Treharn, could you give us the dates, please?
I was trying to be respectful and wait till she was finished speaking. Mr. Weatherholt, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that you communicated to me the options were all of March and all of April. Can you give us the dates?
Doug, is that good? Is that right?
So it's March
All of
2nd through the 5th, March 9th through the 12th, March 16th to the 19th, March 23rd to the 26th, March 30th to April 2nd, April 13th to the 16th, April 20th to the 23rd, and April 27th to the 30th, correct? Okay. So there are statements in here with the weekends and reasons why it would be challenging for the choir to go on the weekends that are outside of the testing window. So where does that put us?
Well, you have a motion and a second to amend. Mrs. Milliken Dixon has said that Mrs. Mather be allowed to choose the date for the trip. I'm thinking that you want to recommend the approval for Geneva High School choir students to travel to New York City in the spring of 2023 based on the date selected by Mrs. Mather.
That's fine.
And so with that motion to amend, you need to vote on that motion to amend once you're done debating. And you need a majority vote to amend the motion that was first put on the table.
So we need a roll call to amend the motion?
Are we ready to take a roll call to amend the motion?
I am, so.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
No?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
And Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion is amended to recommend approval for Geneva High School choir students to travel to New York City in the spring of 2023 based on the date that Mrs. Mather has chosen for the trip. And now you would need to vote on that amended motion.
Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
No?
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
And Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
So it may be too late, but Mr. Weatherholt, if we can receive parent permission for them to be absent during testing, that is preferred. Because this was a very hard decision. Because I could have voted no very easily, so, but I know how much it means to the kids, and I know how much COVID took away from everybody, and I don't want to be responsible for taking away. And I do agree with you, testing is not everything, because testing was horrible for me.
Yeah.
So, I understand that.
Music's the only reason some children come to school.
Okay, that brings us to other.
Amber has, or Mrs., do you want to talk about Mr. or Dr. Patterson real quick?
Yeah.
His March
Yeah,
presentation?
real quickly, I wanted to mention that last month I think I mentioned that I talked with Dr. Patterson, who used to be our congressional representative in this area, and I talked to him a little bit about the Fair School Funding and the voucher program plan that our representatives are trying to push through the state. So he still has his finger on the pulse of what's going on in Congress with this, and I said, oh, you should come and speak at our school board meeting, and he said that, yeah, I'd be happy to do that. I contacted him. He is very willing to come in March. So I briefly spoke with Mrs. Ortiz and Dr. Treharn, and it looks like they're going to look into March and make sure that that's going to be a good time, and he'll be coming in March. I wanted to get the word out tonight. I'm hoping we can have some advertising of that. We'll get the word out again at the next meeting to have people come and listen to Dr. Patterson. He's very knowledgeable. He explains things very well, and he's passionate. He would be a source of really good information about what is happening at the state level to try and change the way we educate our kids. And it's pretty disgusting in my opinion, but he can give you the facts of it and you can judge for yourself. So he will be coming.
Thank you for
thank you.
arranging that.
Yep.
Dr. Treharn?
Yep, so I have a variety of items to report on. First, again, just to circle back around some of the comments in public participation, it seems like there may be some misinformation out there about negotiating with the police department. Our goal has always been to foster a positive relationship with our local law enforcement, and I feel that we do have a positive relationship with our local law enforcement. With our memorandum of understanding, we are to review that annually. We have been working on this since before June. I initially requested a meeting to review the memorandum of understanding, as it should be done annually. We provided a marked up proposal as both parties identified that there was a need for some changes in it. We were never initially responded to on that proposal, and when we contacted them again, we were provided a brand new MOU with additional language added. We immediately marked that up and provided our response, and we just received a response on Monday. So again, we were very excited about that as we hope to wrap that up and continue that partnership. Also, we have a new high school course that we will be offering next year. We submitted an application that we recently received word that was accepted. So at the high school, we will be offering mathematical modeling and reasoning. This course is intended for juniors and seniors, and I certainly thank Ms. Bell, who will be teaching it. I also would like to thank, over break, we had quite a few hiccups with the weather and our building. So I want to thank Adam and Matt Parks from the Geneva Fire Department, along with Jared Brigard and Dave Wright from our district. It was approximately 1:15 a.m. on Christmas morning, and GPS had a sprinkler head let go in the main entrance hall just inside the building. The fire department was inside the building within 14 minutes and shut down the sprinkler system in under 20 minutes from the initial break. We were told that it released approximately 81 gallons of water in that short amount of time. Water was all the way down the hall, the gym area, in the library, the office, the side office, a classroom. Basically, it was not a good situation. Mr. Wright and Mr. Brigard immediately were contacted and came out, and the fire department was wonderful, and they stayed to help clean up all the water from the many places that it had gone. The amount of time that Mr. Wright and Mr. Brigard put in over break to deal with a variety of issues certainly has not gone unnoticed, and I just wanted to thank them again so that everyone else knows how hardworking and dedicated they are and gave of their time when they could have been home with their families. So again, I truly appreciate their efforts in that instance, and they were very, very much appreciated. And it was noted from even staff and others that in returning from break, you would have never known all the issues that arose because of the hard work and them coming out to the buildings. So again, I want to thank them and those individuals from the fire department. Report cards and conferences, just a reminder, the end of the second 9 weeks and the semester is tomorrow. Parents and guardians can access the grades through the parent portal on January 27th. I would also encourage parents to contact their child's teacher to set up a conference, which will either occur on February 7th and 15th for students in grades 6 through 12, or February 8th and 16th for students in grades K-5. Something I'm very excited about this evening is the work that we have done and finished on our Portrait of a Graduate. We started this work back in the middle of September. We were looking to establish what characteristics and or skills people felt that a student who graduated from Geneva should possess. We also realized in developing those skills that they don't start when students enter high school, but from the day they walk in our doors at the elementary. So while they may look different and use different terminology, that's truly where the foundation begins. So fast forward, with the help of our committee, as well as those who responded to our surveys, I am happy to reveal our finished product this evening. But before doing so, I would like to recognize and thank those who served on the committee and gave of their time, which you'll see is a variety of stakeholders. So the teachers who served on the committee, I would like to thank our Renee Hollis, Jenna Webb, Tessa Foote, and Melissa Hall. Parents, Laura Jarvis, Dana Shank, Rachel Cash, Beth Cybalski, and Matt Pete. We had a student serve on the committee, Stefan Leckington, community member Lauren Webster, which you've heard that name a multitude of times this evening, board member Mrs. Milliken Dixon, and administrators, myself, Mr. Weatherholt, and Mr. Riley. So again, thank all of those individuals for their time that they put into the committee and the work. Also, this will be sent to be published on the Battelle for Kids website. We have large banners that are going to be made and posted in each of the buildings around the district, which we are very excited about. And you'll also be able to find it on our website and social media. So again, I would like to thank everyone involved, and if Mrs. Milliken Dixon, since you were a part of this, want to come up and help reveal this.
Go on. Oh, I thought I was going to get you in there.
I'd also like to thank everybody that served on that committee. It's an excellent thing. It's very exciting.
Lastly, I will conclude with these Soaring Eagles from this month. Remember, these students and or staff that were chosen this month will be recognized at the May Board of Education meeting. I won't reread the write-up as Mrs. Brzenko already shared it in regards to Mrs. Howard being chosen by Mrs. Nappy, but I will say it was very nice to see her reaction and go down with Mrs. Nappy to surprise her with this recognition. So she was very appreciative and surprised. So again, you heard the write-up earlier this evening from Mrs. Brzenko. At Cork, fourth grade, Keelan Cobb was chosen by Mrs. Skarnich. She wrote that Keelan is an upbeat and inquisitive student. She is an avid reader and puts forth effort towards her schoolwork. You can always see Keelan with a smile, and she radiates kindness among her peers. Her positive energy makes her a soaring eagle. At GPS, third grade, we had Flynn Cash, who was the soaring eagle, chosen by Mrs. Caraher. Flynn is a true PAX leader and is always respectful to his teachers and peers. He is kind to his classmates and always participates. Flynn is a role model for his peers and uses PAX hands to remind others to be quiet. He earned honor roll for the first grading period and currently has all A's this 9 weeks. He works very hard and always puts forth effort on his work. Flynn is a true soaring eagle. At the middle school in seventh grade, chosen by Miss Koss, we had Jaden Cintron. Ms. Koss wrote that he is a kind and well-mannered student. He has improved and continues to improve his behavior, academics, and work ethic. Jaden is positive and thoughtful. He often remembers specific things about people to show he cares about them. He is always willing to help in the classroom by running errands, picking things up, changing the date, passing papers out, and more. Jaden is the definition of a soaring eagle, and I'm very proud of all he has accomplished this school year. And lastly, at the high school, we had freshman Brooklyn Phillips, chosen by Ms. Kretz, and she wrote that Brooklyn is a great example of bringing a positive attitude and enthusiasm into the classroom. Brooklyn always comes to class prepared, earns solid grades, and goes out of her way to help others. She has a strong work ethic and determination to succeed. Great job, Brooklyn, and thank you for your leadership in our class. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one quick thing.
One quick thing? Okay.
This is my 1-year anniversary on the board, and I just have so many people to thank that I cannot do it individually. I have done it individually. I just wanted to publicly say thank you to everyone who has taught me something, asked me something, invited me into their school, invited me into their classroom. I have really enjoyed this first year on the board, and I'm looking forward to my next 3. Thank you all.
I recommend the board hold an executive session for the purpose of considering the appointment, employment, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official.
I'll move.
Second.
Roll call?
Mrs. Ortiz?
Yes.
Mr. Arndt?
Yes.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes.
Mrs. Metzler?
Yes.
And Mrs. Milliken Dixon?
Yes.
Thank you for coming. We will not be returning with action after executive session. Safe travels.
Where are we going? Sally, where do you
don't
want to
know.
go? Where'd you park?
Where does Sally want to
You
go?
park up front? Sally parked up front.
So up front?
Oh, excuse me.
Thank you.
I have some gum that's taking care of it, just had a tickle.
It's very frustrating when that happens. That happened to me in the middle of a nutcracker at the
Ooh,
art center.
oh gosh,
And I
yeah.
was sitting in the middle of the auditorium, so I do have a mint. If that will help at all.
Maybe,
But
I better save it.
I thought I had a cough drop, but I don't know. I might have used them all at the art center. So are we going up front or are we staying at?
Sally, do you have a preference?